life no get duplicate.
Na so ẹ̀mí ò láàárọ̀ o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
Tẹ́ jẹ́jẹ́ o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni o. Make you take am easy.
Na so.
Radio Afinju says if you drink, don't drive. If you drive, don't drink.
Tẹ́ jẹ́jẹ́ o.
Make you take am easy.
Na so.
This awareness is brought to you by Radio Afinju.
Wherever you're listening or watching Radio Afinju, the time is 3 p.m.
Ẹ bá mi pè o. Àfínjú. Kí lorúkọ rẹ̀? Àfínjú. Rédíò. Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ Àfínjú. Lórí WhatsApp. Àfínjú. Instagram. Àfínjú. Facebook. Àfínjú. Lórí X. Àfínjú. Lórí YouTube. Àfínjú. Lórí TikTok. Àfínjú. Kí lorúkọ rẹ̀? Àfínjú. Ẹ bá mi pè o. Àfínjú. Rédíò. Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ 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 Àfínjú. Rédíò Àfínjú. Rédíò Àfínjú. Rédíò Àfínjú.
Stay informed with news on Radio Afinju.
First, to look at the highlights. Tinubu attends Nigeria-South Africa binational talks in Cape Town. Namibia's ruling party takes lead in election results. Musk's record $56 billion pay deal rejected for second time. Good afternoon and welcome to the World News on Radio Afinju. My name is Durotoye. The news in detail. President Bola Tinubu is in Cape Town, South Africa, participating in the 11th session of the Nigeria-South Africa Binational Commission, a milestone that marks 25 years since the establishment of the framework aimed at strengthening ties between the two nations. Tinubu, on arrival, was received by South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Roland Lamola, alongside Nigeria's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odumegu Ojukwu. The president leads high-level discussions with his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, on a broad spectrum of critical issues. These include trade and investment, political cooperation, migration, defense and security, energy, manufacturing and the social sector. President Tinubu emphasized the significance of the session and the collaborative potential of Africa's two largest economies in driving the continent's development. The presentation of the Ogun State 2025 Appropriation Bill to the State House of Assembly by the State Governor Dapo Abiodun, earlier scheduled for last week Friday, will now be held tomorrow, Wednesday, December 4, 2024. This is contained in a statement from the clerk, head of Legislative Service, Sakiru Adebakin, and obtained by reporters today. According to the statement, the budget presentation, which would be the second in the governor's second term, would be a twin celebration, as he will take advantage of his visit to commission the newly redesigned assembly complex. The redesigning process saw the 45-year-old complex giving way to a modern structure that could match any legislative complex across the world. The Nigeria Sex Workers Association, NSWA, has urged law enforcement agencies to protect its members from harassment and abuse. National Coordinator Amaka Enemo stated that there has been a disturbing rise in physical assaults, harassment and extortion of sex workers by clients and law enforcement officials. Enemo emphasized that sex workers are not criminals but individuals with rights who deserve protection. She called for law enforcement agencies to ensure their personnel conduct their duties professionally and respectfully. To achieve this, Enemo proposed several measures, including comprehensive training for officials, safe reporting mechanisms, and accountability for acts of violence or discrimination against sex workers. She also advocated for public awareness campaigns to combat stigma and ensure justice for victims. Finally, Enemo appealed to government agencies, NGOs, and the public to collaborate with the NSWA in addressing the injustices faced by sex workers and promoting their dignity and rights. Former House of Representatives member Joseph Haruna Kibu was abducted yesterday evening by suspected bandits while traveling to Jos. Reports gathered that the incident occurred around 6 o'clock p.m. between Nunku and Akwanga local government area, Nasarawa State, and Gwantu in Sanga local government area, Kaduna State. The assailants shot and killed Kibu's police escort, who attempted to resist the abduction. Eyewitnesses reported sporadic gunfire, which caused panic among nearby motorists. Local villagers confirmed the incident, stating that the area has long been a hotspot for criminal activities. Kibu's abduction and the death of his escort underscore the ongoing security challenges in the region, leading residents to call for increased security presence. A late-night inferno has gutted some parts of the popular Bayan Tasha market in Damaturu, destroying shops and goods worth millions of naira. One of the residents of Damaturu, Mustafa Gujba, disclosed the incident on his Facebook page. The cause of the fire outbreak was yet to be ascertained, but according to reports gathered, the fire was controlled through the combined efforts of firefighters and Good Samaritans. It was learnt no life was reported to have been lost, but unquantifiable goods and other belongings were destroyed. Away from Nigeria, Namibia's ruling SWAPO party, led both the presidential and parliamentary races, a week after voting took place in an election marred by technical challenges. SWAPO, which has governed the Southern African nation since leading it to independence from apartheid South Africa in 1990, field Vice President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah as its presidential candidate. If victorious, she would become Namibia's first female leader. Results were initially expected a few days after November 27 poll, but voting was extended to November 29 and November 30 at several polling stations after some voters were unable to cast their ballots on election day due to technical difficulties and ballot paper shortages. The Electoral Commission's election portal showed Nandi-Ndaitwah was leading the presidential race with 54.82% of the votes after 65.57% of votes had been accounted. Elsewhere, fighting resumed in eastern Congo, again violating a ceasefire, the M23 rebel group and Congolese army said, casting doubts on whether the M23 group would cease its offensive after the withdrawal of Rwandan troops. The Tutsi-led M23 group has been waging a renewed insurgency in the Central African countries east since 2022. Congo and the United Nations accuse neighboring Rwanda of backing the group with its own troops and weapons, an accusation Rwanda denies. However, UN experts say in July that Rwanda does have between 3,000 and 4,000 government forces deployed in eastern Congo, operating alongside the M23 rebel group. At a meeting held last week, the foreign ministers of Congo and Rwanda agreed on the terms and conditions of the disengagement of those Rwandan forces. M23 confirmed the resumption of fighting earlier today. In Asia, a court in Vietnam has upheld a death sentence for real estate tycoon Trong Lan after rejecting an appeal against the conviction for embezzlement and bribery in a high-profile $12 billion fraud case. Lan, the chairwoman of real estate developer Van Tim Pat Holdings Group, was sentenced to death in April for a role in what was Vietnam's biggest financial fraud case on record. The High People's Court in southern Ho Chi Minh City determined there was no basis to reduce Lan's death sentence. Reports say if Lan is able to return 3/4 of the money embezzled while on death row, it is possible the sentence could be commuted to life imprisonment. Indian police said they will seek details from Elon Musk's Starlink in a bid to hunt down drug smugglers who use its satellite internet device to navigate deep seas and bring meth worth $4.25 billion into Indian waters for the first time. In the biggest of such seizure, police in the remote outpost of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands uncovered more than 6,000 kilograms of meth last week in a Myanmar boat carrying sacks of suspected contraband and detained 6 Myanmar nationals. But the incident has set off alarm bells as it is the first time Starlink's device has been used to navigate and reach Indian waters, a top police officer in the Andaman Islands, Hagobinda S. Daliwal, who is handling the case, told reporters. Starlink, which says it provides coverage in international waters, has plans to launch in India, but says its coverage in territorial waters is contingent on government approval. In the United Kingdom, Britain's cybersecurity chief has warned of a rise in hostile activity in the country's cyberspace, with the number of incidents handled by officials rising by 16% in 2024 compared to a year ago. The National Cybersecurity Centre's Richard Horn said in a speech later today, according to a statement released by the government agency, that hostile activity in UK cyberspace has increased in frequency, sophistication and intensity. The agency said in a statement the incident management team at the NCSC handled 430 incidents in 2024 compared to 371 the previous year. In its annual review published alongside the statement, the NCNC said ransomware attacks pose the most immediate and disruptive threat to critical infrastructure like energy, water, transportation, health, and telecommunications. In Europe, Ukraine has slammed a 30-year-old security agreement as it reiterated its call for NATO membership. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kyiv earlier in the morning slammed 1994's Budapest Memorandum, which saw the newly independent country give up the world's third largest nuclear arsenal for security guarantees from Russia and the West. The criticism of the short-sighted deal came before a NATO meeting that is expected to discuss the growing possibility of negotiations to end the war with Russia. The Foreign Ministry statement read in part, the Budapest Agreement, signed by the United States, the United Kingdom, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, was a monument to short-sightedness in strategic security decision-making. In the Americas, a judge has ruled Tesla chief executive Elon Musk's record-breaking $56 billion pay award will not be reinstated. The decision in the Delaware court comes after months of legal wrangling and despite it being approved by shareholders and directors in the summer. Judge Kathleen McCormick upheld her previous decision from January, in which she argued that board members were too heavily influenced by Musk. Reacting to the ruling, Musk wrote on X, saying shareholders should control company votes, not judges. Tesla vowed to appeal against the ruling, saying the decision was wrong. Judge McCormick said the pay package would have been the largest ever for the boss of a listed company. She said Tesla failed to approve the pay package, which dates back to 2018, was fair. In the Middle East, Israeli military strikes have killed at least 14 Palestinians across the Gaza Strip, most of them in the town of Beit Lahia on the northern edge, as the army issued new evacuation orders in the south of the tiny enclave. Medics said 8 people had been killed in a series of strikes in Beit Lahia, while 4 others were killed elsewhere in Gaza City. Medics said an earlier Israeli airstrike, later killed 2 people and wounded others in Jalabia, the largest of Gaza's 8 historic refugee camps in the northern Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the Syrian army and allied forces confronted an attack launched by forces affiliated with the Syrian Democratic Forces Alliance on villages in the northern countryside of Del Azor province earlier. The SDF is a Kurdish-led alliance in north and east Syria, which worked with the US-led coalition against Islamic State. Spearheaded by the Kurdish People's Protection Units, YPG, and including Arab fighters, it holds a quarter of Syria, including oil fields and areas where some 900 US troops were deployed. Turkey, Syria's northern neighbor, considers the YPG and the SDF by extension to be terrorist groups. Now talking sports, Britain Daniel Dubois will defend his world heavyweight title against former champion Joseph Parker in Saudi Arabia on 22nd February. Dubois, 27-year-old, made a spectacular first defense on his IBF belt by beating Anthony Joshua in September. New Zealand's Parker, 32-year-old, held the WBO title between 2016 and 2018 before losing it to Joshua. Also, on the card in Riyadh, Artur Beterbiev will defend his undisputed light heavyweight crown in a rematch with fellow Russian Dmitry Bivol. Undefeated Londoner Hamza Shiraz will challenge for his maiden world title against WBC middleweight champion Carlos Adams, while British lightweights Joshua Buatsi and Callum Smith will meet for Buatsi's WBO interim title. Shakur Stevenson will put his WBC lightweight belt on the line against Floyd Schofield, and Zhilei Zhang faces Agate Kabayel for the interim WBC heavyweight title to compete the blockbuster card. Before we go, here again are the highlights. President Bola Tinubu is in Cape Town, South Africa, participating in the 11th session of the Nigeria-South Africa Binational Commission, a milestone that marks 25 years since the establishment of the framework aimed at strengthening ties between the two nations. Elsewhere, Namibia's ruling SWAPO party led both the presidential and parliamentary races a week after voting took place in an election marred by technical challenges. In the Americas, a judge has ruled Tesla chief executive Elon Musk's record-breaking $56 billion pay award will not be reinstated. That was the world news on Radio Afinju. To view our channel, please follow us on Facebook, X, and YouTube at Radio Afinju. My name is Pearl Durotoye. Thanks for listening. Good afternoon.